3 weeks ago on a Sunday morning, I reached for my phone as normal, looking for reading suggestions on Twitter to go with my cup of coffee. But rather than links to newspaper articles, I saw friends in Ireland and Australia all using the same hashtag, #FindJill. They were talking about the disappearance of Jill Mair, who'd gone out for drinks with people after work and hadn't been seen since. Over the next few days, the tragic events unfolded, each one playing out on social networks. And 3 days later on my Facebook page, I saw the following post that had been shared by Victoria Police. Urgent. The A. Bailey of Coburg, listed in the phone book, is not related or connected in any way to Adrian Bailey, charged over the Gillian Mair investigation. We have received reports of people posting his address on their Facebook pages and wishing him ill harm. Please report and/or remove any reference to this immediately. So what had happened was that the local police department had become increasingly concerned about discussion of this other poor man who happened to have the same name as the Adrian Bailey charged with Jill's murder. But it wasn't just the targeting of this person that was of concern. Across the blogosphere, Twitter and Facebook, people were speculating about the real Adrian Bailey, talking about his past history, posting photos of him, and urging people in prison to cause him actual harm. Now, I don't have to remind you about what that means. This was the Adrian Bailey who, until conviction by a jury, remains innocent unless proven guilty. The tragic case of Jill Mair's rape and murder demonstrates the incredible power of social media. That hashtag spun around the globe in seconds because it resonated to such an extent, and it provided necessary attention for that original search. But on the flip side, these tweets and Facebook status updates might mean that this is the first high-profile criminal case that collapses due to prejudicial coverage on social media. It seems unthinkable that this will happen, but we're moving dangerously close to that situation, because whether we like it or not, every one of us now is becoming a publisher, but we don't necessarily understand the implications of that. And just listen to these statistics. Every minute, 72 hours of content are uploaded to YouTube, and it's not all cats. 100,000 tweets are sent every minute, and 700,000 pieces of content are shared on Facebook every minute. We're all publishers now, because as much as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, Pinterest have these silly, frivolous names, and as much as many people use them every day to post those pictures of their cats and to talk about the deliciousness of their latte and to speculate about the performance of the latest X Factor contestants, what we fail to recognise is the seriousness of this communication revolution. It snuck up on us so fast. Because previously, one silly drunken comment down the pub might lead to your wife rolling her eyes and leading you quietly to the door. Now, one thoughtless status update can lead to, in the worst case scenarios, people losing their jobs, reputations being ruined, and as the one guy who tweeted about blowing up an airport if his girlfriend couldn't land because of the snow, formal charges being brought. And Twitter is ultimately a ridiculous name for a communication platform that is by default public, and everything we post there is on the record forever. Even if we press delete, hoping that nobody's seen it, somebody somewhere has clicked on a screen grab. And ultimately, email was just an extension of the letter, text messaging an extension of the phone call, but the speed and reach of social media means it's a big leap away from anything we've had before. It can't be controlled. But how many of you have had ethical or legal training? What on earth does defamation mean in the world of TripAdvisor? Was it right to imprison somebody, as happened last week, for 3 months in prison for saying something offensive about April Jones, who went missing in Wales? And was it right for YouTube to remove the recent Muslim rage video that sparked violence around the world? It's a legal and ethical maze, and we're working our way through it, one event at a time. I used to teach journalism ethics, and journalists are certainly struggling with these dilemmas, particularly around Facebook. Is it ethical to use a photo from somebody's Facebook profile after they've died? Is it ethical to use information that you've only gleaned from Facebook because you're actually friends with somebody who they went to university with? But at least news organisations take training seriously. The general public doesn't have that kind of social media training. And some schools are trying to fold it into general media literacy classes, but how on earth do you teach a generation that inherently believes they know more than their old fart 28-year-old teacher? And legal issues are one thing. I hope that these high-profile cases will make people realise that the same rules apply to Mary Fitzgerald writing in the Irish Times as it does Bob posting on his Facebook page on a Saturday night. So what is actually more interesting, I think, are those subtle decisions people make every day about what they post online. I used to be a lecturer at Cardiff School of Journalism, and about 5 years ago, one of my teaching assistants took me to one side and in hushed tones said, one of our students has written something bad about you on Facebook. So I said, okay, I will investigate this. So I went home and poured myself a large whiskey and looked at the said Facebook page and realised that he had indeed said, Claire Wardle is shit. I wish she'd shoot herself in the head and throw herself off a cliff. And then for added emphasis, bitch. And so when we brought him in and had a word with him, he said, oh, thing is, Claire, I actually really like you. I think you're a great teacher. But I was really frustrated because I couldn't write that essay. And anyway, that's how we talked down the pub. And I think that's the crux here, is that offline, we can manage multiple identities. We can be different people when spending time with our school friends versus our boss, when we're with our rugby team versus our grandparents. But online, this is impossible. We have to think about having one identity. And what interests me is actually we're socialised into what's appropriate offline by our parents. When we're little and walk down the street and say something embarrassing, our parents go, shh, you don't say that in public. But we don't have that same socialisation when it comes to online norms, partly because our elders don't know as much, they haven't gone through the same process. So over time, we might see the laws catch up and acknowledge that ultimately we can't stop people talking about high-profile crimes. And we might actually see schools folding into their curricula serious examples of training when it comes to social media. And we might even develop smartphones that are so smart that when we tweet something inappropriate, it says, are you sure you want to send that? But in the meantime, I think we can learn from the New York Times, which has struggled with these same issues. What can their journalists tweet or post on Facebook? And after lots of discussion and chin stroking, they finally came up with 4 mighty words. Use your common sense, and you can tweet that. Thank you.